Hey everyone, Tyler here at The Movie Beat, back with another video update. I got a chance to check out the brand new Korean film Good Neighbor, and it's a comedy drama film directed by Lee Hwan-gyeong, who brought us Miracle in Cell No.7 about 7 years ago. So it's a long time coming for his next feature. That film was highly loved, so some anticipation coming into this one. Also, this movie is seeing the return of the powerful Oh Dal-su, the actor who's really been missing for the last few years since during the Me Too movement here in Korea. This actor was accused of some sexual harassment. There were some allegations made that really saw a halt in all of this actor's productions. I believe he was X'd out of several film productions, like Along with the Gods Part 2, and some of his films were even just shelved indefinitely. Kind of blacklisted, you might say, and this year, 2020, is a little bit peculiar for a lot of different reasons. I'll go more in detail on that when I do my 2020 year wrap-up video, but a couple things I'll just say is because of coronavirus and just the scale of the kind of productions we're seeing this year, it looks like, there may have been an opportunity to unshelve one of those projects, which was this film, Good Neighbor, which I believe was completed or near completed several years ago when they did decide to shelve it. So perhaps there's an opportunity to test the waters and see if people were ready for maybe reintroducing this actor. And I have to say that the results, based on what I've seen, is about 50-50. So at least this film can be seen and maybe can recoup some of its production costs, but probably not much. But it does seem like a lot of people are not ready for the return of this actor. I, for one, for whatever reason, my personality is able to separate the man from the work, and I, for one, am very glad to see this actor return. Really, he's brought me a lot of laughs, a lot of memorable, dramatic moments. Really great actor here in Korea. So I, for one, am very glad that I could see this film. So this film, Good Neighbor or Next Door Neighbor, or there's a lot of, I don't think this film has an official English translation, but it's going to come out something like that. Good Neighbors, Next Door Neighbor, something. This film is interesting for a lot of reasons. It's a drama comedy, so really a genre that Korea does very well, and this director, if you've seen Miracle in Cell No.7, really knows how to twist the notches to kind of play with your emotions a little bit. On that note of being a film that was perhaps completed prior to COVID, I really strongly felt while watching this film that it does feel like one of the bigger films this year, just because a lot of the films that came out this year were probably made during or under certain restrictions because of coronavirus. So they did kind of feel a bit smaller in general in scope. So there's, less extras, less smaller sets. This film did feel like a pre-COVID movie. So it felt big. A lot of people involved, protests type things. So that is one good thing, but it is also, we got to just remember that it was made before all of this happens to try and judge it the way that it should be. Also, one good thing about it coming out now rather than in 2018 or 2019 is that this movie does take place in that rough time in Korean history, the mid-'80s, early '80s, late '70s. You guys have probably seen a lot of Korean films like A Taxi Driver, The Attorney, 1987. A lot of films really dealt with the pro-democratic movement and the authoritarian regime that was at that time, really crushing that whole pro-democracy movement, a lot of student protesters and whatnot. So the fact that this movie comes out now is probably very good for it, because I think if it came out then, it would have maybe been a little bit fatigue for this style or this genre, this time period. So I'm going to get into the story synopsis real quick to give you guys kind of a quick gist of how this movie plays out, and then give you some of my thoughts on the movie as a whole. So here we go. After having spent several years abroad in a kind of political exile, Lee-shik, played by Oh Dal-su, happily returns to his home country of Korea, but immediately upon arrival, he is whisked away by a group of men in dark suits who take him to a securely guarded house where he is to live in isolation with his family. Lee-shik and his associates are considered a dangerous political threat to the current authoritarian regime looking to secure another term, and will not be permitted to leave or speak publicly under any circumstances. Meanwhile, the formerly unemployed yet ambitious family man, Yoo Dae-kwon, played by Jung Woo, begins to make a name for himself within the authoritarian regime's inner circle and secret spy organization, tasked with getting dirt on left-wing activists and organizers. His big promotion sends him to lead a small group of expert wiretappers disguised as neighbors to live next door to the family home where Lee-shik is being held to decode any secret messages that may be going in or out of the home. But as the hidden operation ensues, a dramatic relationship filled with laughter, tears, and secrets between the neighbors begins that impact the future of the Lee family forever. So the first thing that I want to say about this film is, the return of Oh Dal-su. Again, this movie was probably made before he went through his sort of blacklisting type mode. Really on his A game in this film, along with Jung Woo, who you guys have probably seen in the drama series Reply. I believe it's 1988 and maybe 97. Amazing, powerful performances in this film. Both actors, if it was up to me, I would give them a nod for an award, at least nominate for some kind of award, because it was very moving. Jung Woo, who plays the Busan family man, Yoo Dae-kwon in this film, really brings that strong Busan dialect, and so he's kind of a gruff type, hardworking guy. He seems a little bit abrasive at first, but he's got this really charming smile that really wins you over when he gets into his kind of playful mode or trying to convince people he's not a secret wiretapper, because he does have to he gets kind of caught, of course, with his team, and that's the beginning of the film. Really the comedy aspects of his team trying to hide their identity and not get too close to the Lee family. So that part was pretty charming overall. Oh Dal-su as this character who's feared politically by the dictatorial leader at the time, played by Hee-won, who I loved his performance in The Merciless. He's also in the new film Collateral, or it's also known as Pawn, which I have not seen yet, but he is a great supporting actor. He plays that sort of evil leader really well, who's Jung Woo's boss in the film. So he was really good. Again, the acting is phenomenal. The overall feeling I have, the tone of the film is classic Korean drama comedy, and it is set in that old-timey type era, which they do really well. You're probably very used to seeing that by now if you've seen A Taxi Driver and The Attorney, things like that. But the comedy was fairly good. The movie in general has kind of a slower tone, a very more dramatic, melodramatic type tone. And I have to say that as masterful as this director is at creating those really melodramatic moments, great use of music and all that, some of the story elements are going to feel pretty contrived. But that's just sort of the nature of these types of big melodrama comedy type films. I think overall they worked really well, and I was pretty moved in a lot of different scenes. But this movie, I gotta say, the music, everything, that old-timey sense, you may be a little bit fatigued by now, but it's definitely a film worth checking out. And it's going to be an enjoyable journey to see how the relationship between these two neighbors, the wiretappers and the family, ensues, because it's kind of predictable, but I feel like the message is so strong and it's really powerful and it's really relevant for today's times when we don't really know our neighbors, and the ones that we feel like are pretty different from us, especially in today's political climate, especially maybe in America, where it's pretty tribal, that there's that sense that there's more to your neighbor than meets the eye, and you might have more in common than you realize if you take that extra step and try to get to know them. Of course, that step is pretty hard to take, but the message is just very powerful. And again, it's a pro-democratic film. It's based on a true time period and true events and people in Korean history, of course, with some of the names changed. So that's going to be kind of an exciting part for viewers to see how that unfolds and who these characters actually turn out to be in history. So I hope you guys do get a chance to check out this film, Good Neighbor, and let me know your thoughts on it or your opinion of the actors. If you're not a fan of Oh Dal-su, or you're not like me and can separate the man from the work as easily, you're probably not going to give it a go anyways. But those of you who do, I'm really curious about your reactions to this film. It has some pretty decent comedy, great drama, great acting. I love the time period as far as an onlooker. Looking back, of course, it was probably a very difficult time to live through. So I got to rate this film a 7.5 out of 10. Let me know what you guys think. Again, thanks as always for watching. Until next time, I'm Tyler at The Movie Beat. Keep watching movies.